Okay, so let's go across into custom tuning. This, as a rule of thumb, obviously in motorsport, you would run somewhere between 27 and 29 tire pressures, okay? Which is great. That works in this game, that's not a problem. But in this game, you want to be sticking somewhere around the 20 to 21, okay? Reason for this, obviously, a little bit more grip in Horizon as mechanics go, and lower tire pressure obviously just allows the tires to move around some objects that you will encounter. Not good, not bad, but that's just how it is. I pretty much put these here, near enough leave them there. Okay, coming back to now the gearbox. That sixth gear is still quite a drop, obviously. All it was a sport box, so we can't adjust the sixth gear. If I had the race box, but obviously that was a massive PI increase, which just isn't worth it for this build. So what we're going to do, we're just going to move that fifth gear up a little bit, essentially, using the final drive. And you always want to keep your last gear somewhere around that last lot, second to last line on that graph, because it's probably not going to go much faster than that anyway, and I'll show you that in a moment. In terms of alignment, again, camber in this game is not as not restrictive. It doesn't work quite the same way as motorsport. For probably 90% of my cars now, 0.9 and 1.1 just works better for me. It's to do with understeer and oversteer. Obviously, the more camber you put in, the more lean you can have when you're turning before it actually rolls over the end of the tire and then you start losing grip, which, is not exactly helpful. Toe, I pretty much never touch those. If they've got toe from factory, put them to 0. You shouldn't have to touch them in this game. There's literally no reason. Caster, always 7, doesn't matter. Really, just put it to 7.0 in this game. In terms of anti-roll bars, rear-wheel drive cars, I pretty much start with a 10 on the front and then a 40 on the rear. This will probably, we'll move it in a little bit probably, but that's what we start with. If it's four-wheel drive or front-wheel drive, 1 and 50, 1 and 60, you need that big gap just to generate the rotation. But obviously, with the rear-wheel drive cars and how the grip works, you don't want to create too much of an oversteer because obviously it'll just start drifting on you, which is just not worth it. In the spring section, I pretty much see the T on soft. That is probably where I put all of my tunes. Reason for this, you don't need lots of spring rates because the tracks aren't flat. Most of them are up and down, over curbs, over bumps. It's just not worth having. So that's just the reason for that. Ride height, 9 times out of 10 people will go, yeah, I'll just slam it or drop the center of gravity and things like that. That's great, that's fine. But in Horizon, I would actually say you want to sit somewhere around the 2/3 to 3/4 mark and make sure that the ride height numbers, if you can, are equal. So if that means that the 6.8 on the top was actually like in this area, that's fine. Just go with that. But obviously this car is equal, so or near as equal. We'll put them there, and that's what we'll run with. This allows the car to move and yaw and rotate, which on Horizon it just makes life so much better. The more the car rotates in this game, just the more it just works and helps. Even if you oversteer for some reason, it just helps. Rebound and bump. Obviously, these numbers in terms of motorsport, you would cap out at somewhere around 13. Obviously, in this game, you can go all the way to, I think it's 18? Oh no, sorry, 20. So, but what we're going to do, I never go above 15. Just scale everything a little bit. So, what we'll do, front engine, this bit kind of applies to, motorsport. Wherever the engine is, put the more rebound, kind of close in the rear, and then bump, bring that down to somewhere around the 3 to 6 area. And you basically want to reverse the rebounds. So, more in the front, less in the rear. You would have less in the front, more in the rear. Aero, as I say, if you had this upgrade unlocked, put the front downforce pretty much all the way up every time, unless it's like a really low class, and you manage to get a body kit or something like that on a car and you didn't apply the upgrade. Put that all the way up. it's just not needed. Rear-wheel drive car, say A class and below, we probably don't even need that area. And look how much speed we just picked up, by the way. Going from middle to all the way to speed, we went from 176 possible top speed to 190. So it's 14 miles an hour. Yes, obviously, okay, we're going to lose a bit of braking and a little bit of lateral G, but power and speed in this game just conquers lateral G. It really does in the same car. My brakes, I do 52 130 in this game. A lot of people will be saying, 50 is the best with 100, and that's great. That's fine. It works for them. I prefer that. The one thing to also bear in mind with braking force in this game, it's actually reversed. So if I have this all the way at 100%, this is actually going to be locking up the rear tires, not the front. And again, opposite, if it was all the way to 0 on the rear, I'd actually be locking the front brakes up. So even with the 52%, that's actually 52 to the rear, or 48% to the rear. And then the pressure is just where I feel most comfortable. I don't lock my brakes up there. You might have to lower it if you're a little bit more trigger happy, or increase it if you're like really gentle, really soft on it. But that's pretty much where we sit. In terms of differential on this particular vehicle, obviously rear wheel drive, we only have a rear diff. I'm going to start at somewhere around the 60 area on there, and I seem to always start at 10% of whatever I start on the acceleration. Don't know why. It just seems to be a nice number that happily rotates. Doesn't give me too much issue when I then come to driving the car. So 60 and 6, we'll probably end up higher on that one, and knowing myself, I will probably go lower. What this means is obviously the higher this number is, the more oversteer you're going to apply when you start applying the throttle. The back end's going to start to want to walk away from you. The lower it is, the more stable understeer you're going to start inducing. Deceleration is completely the opposite. If you had 0, you are generating the most amount of turning possible. Obviously, there will come a point where, in most cars, using 0, you'll actually make the back end step out on you when you're slowing down, and that's just not optimal. And obviously, if it was at 100%, it would be so stable, it probably wouldn't turn most of the time. It will turn eventually, but you can get much better results with fine tuning. So I like quite loose back ends on my cars, so that's why I have quite a low decel. So we're going to go through that, and let's go for a drive, shall we? So here we go. Our 800? Yeah, A800 PI Silvia S15. And let's just go for a drive. I'm going to be a bit light throttle. What I normally do in any vehicle I do, I come here, get on the straight, and just see what it will do top end. A-class rear-wheel drive, you need a car that's going to clear 150 pretty much with ease, which this is, as you can see, already doing. Let's try that SIP gear. So you see how that SIP gear just completely dropped then? It's just not worth it. That is too low to be worth worrying about. So what I'm going to be doing is straight away, I'm going to make that 5th gear a little bit longer. Obviously, we'll allow my 5th gear to be longer. I can go back into 5th gear, and look at that. More acceleration. Obviously, the cams are helping with that top end power. The car is doing 190, 191. And what I will keep doing is I would say I'll drive as for as long as I can. We'll go a little bit further because I don't think it's going to have much more in the tank. It won't hit 200, not easily. Not unless it's, a massive downhill part. But it looks like that's going to be right about correct. And as you can see, now applying that tune to what we had, it's just allowing the car to do what I want it to do. Brakes really well, actually. and a little bit of wheel spin, but obviously, you know, you've got 500 horsepower in a car that basically weighs under a ton. So it's quite controllable, nothing too nasty. What we what we will then do now is we'll go and test it out. I like to go on for my testing tracks for a road car is literally the Horizon Mexico circuit or the Emerald circuit. This is going to be a little bit more power orientated side of A class, not by much, but a little bit. So what we're going to go is Horizon Mexico. Go on here. If I'm just building a random car, I will go to my friends list because I know most of those are not. We'll call them cheated lap times. And what we'll do is I like all of my cars that I build to at least run a 4.9. So I'm going to pick JSR Type Ray, quite a well-known name. I'm sure he was just doing the career mode at times. I'm sure he could beat that with his eyes closed. So what we'll do, we'll load that up and we'll get right there. So here we are at the Horizon Mexico circuit. So gonna be pretty lengthy from this moment on. I will probably cut to a lap that I feel is pretty decent. I'm not gonna say it's great. I will probably use a rewind at some point. So, but just seeing there, do you see how the front end was pushing on the mid to exit of the what I would call the slowing down point, so the deceleration? If it was pushing, that means that decel needs to be lower. And I completely botched that. But we will keep going and see how we get on. Quite a tight left-hander here. It's actually probably one of my favourite corners because there's just a massive grip increase for some reason. Like say, those drift tyres, obviously normally meant to be sideways, but for some reason when you're building for a road car, you can just get away with using them, and they just have so much more grip. Also, if you do start going sideways, then they will be doing exactly what they are labelled as, and you will start understeering. Sorry, understeering? What am I talking about? Oversteering, which is just, you know, not good. So, let's see what JSR Type Ray's got. You want to hug the inside kind of there. Obviously, he's in a front-wheel drive car, so he's got a little bit more grip than me out of the corner on his particular build, but you can just see the power difference down here. Obviously, the bigger the track, the bigger difference is going to be. I'll use second gear then just to rotate the car. But he's definitely got the grip, as you can see. Just being able to keep with me and not worry about it, pretty much. There are a few lines that you just want to master as such. That was not a good way of doing it because I went sideways. And as I said, these tyres sideways in terms of racing are just not it. Underneath the bridge, and you know he's got 5.1. He's going to catch us a little bit in the last corner. He might even go past me. No, he's not going to do it. So this is going to be a 4.808 straight out of the gate. So, you know, if I was saying, cool, yeah, we'll leave that there. Nah, let's go another lap and we'll see what we can find. Trying to work out how much I can push the back end before it slips. But I would say we're somewhere in the region of about, say, obviously you don't get split times on Horizon. It's a little bit harder to gauge. Definitely need that lower decel, which I will correct for myself in a minute. Obviously, that is completely preferential. You don't need to. It doesn't mean it's going to be better for you. I'm just saying, for me, I like my cars to rotate, and there was definitely a moment of inherent understeer there. But as far as the car actually drives, you know, there's nothing really wrong with it. So what we'll do this lap, because without, you know, completely sweating it and putting a lot of time in, it's not going to get massively faster on this build, and the tune might be a little bit quicker now. So we picked up a 10th there, but what we're going to do, we'll quit out and make that adjustment to the decel. I was noticing I was just about getting ready to lock up on myself there, so I will actually lower the brake pressure by 5%, and I will probably call that a day on that car. So what we'll do, I'll quickly go to it now. Drop the 5%, and that was quite unnecessary, so I'm just going to go straight to 0. I'll do a couple of corners in a moment with it. I'm going to add a little bit more incentive for the front end to react to what I'm doing. So obviously, if I lower the front roll bar, so make it softer, it's going to react faster, turn in more. And I'm going to add a little bit more stability to the rear end by making it stiffer. And basically call that it. I'll do one quick run up here. Hopefully there's a couple of corners where I can get the diff to work and do what I want it to do. But this car has got great pull. I mean, by all means, why don't you guys build it yourself using the upgrades I have, or your own way of building it, and see what you come up with. I mean, there's nothing bad about that at all. It'd be great to see what the rest of the community can come up with. But right now, as you can see, no rear aero on the tuning, and the car is doing exactly what I want it to do. Hugging every apex of the corner, going quite well. What we'll do is we'll try and set ourselves up for a braking point up here on the crossroads. There's that little bit of wheel spin I was worried about. Slightly long third gear, that's the only bad problem with that. So, I mean, you could lower the gearbox if you wanted to, like you would put it more towards acceleration. But obviously you will then start rev banging 5th gear, because 5th gear is just not worth using. So, that's what we're going to do there. I will now share this car, come to a stop, hit car, tune car, save setup, put it in, and I will be calling this A-Class Road. Just so people, when they want to download a tune, they know what it's for. It's great putting sprint or circuit or things like that. That's how I was doing it. But I was like, you know what, it's just better to use road or off-road, and then people can decipher for themselves what they want to use it for. But by all means, go to my creative hub. It is DTS Lawrence. I've currently got 59 tunes up there, as you see, with 4,800 downloads. And these are all the cars that I currently have shared. I do have a spreadsheet that is now completely free to use. You can access it whenever. I will put the link to that down below. It is a Google spreadsheet. Just click on it. It is live updating, everything like that. I'm trying to add new tunes every day, obviously, when I get time. And what we will do is I will leave you with the share code if I can find the Silvia. Probably the other way, and which is normally yep, it's always the other way. I don't know why. So these cars are all brand new, that's why there's not much to them. Am I being blind? I think I'm being blind. Ah, there it is. Okay, there you go. And there is the share code if you want to try it out for yourself. So, thank you guys. Like and subscribe. DTS Lawrence here. See you in the next one.